Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. The air was sharp and crisp that late November evening when I first sensed the change. Elise had told me she was meeting her friends for drinks. At least, that's what she claimed. I stayed behind in our quiet Seattle apartment, nursing a whiskey and flipping through TV channels, the glow of the screen flickering across the room. After 9 years of marriage, I'd grown attuned to her rhythms, the subtle quirks that defined her. But that night, something felt off. Her text earlier had been brief. On my way back soon. Love you. Plain, ordinary words. Yet there was a strain in them I couldn't ignore, a forced brightness that didn't sit right. She breezed in just after midnight, her laughter soft and private as her boots tapped against the hardwood floor. Her dark hair was slightly tousled, her cheeks rosy from the cold, or something else. Then I caught it, a scent clinging to her, not her usual light floral perfume, but something richer, muskier. A man's cologne. I didn't call it out, not yet. Instead, I watched her as she slipped off her coat, dropping her purse onto the kitchen island with a casual toss. Good time, I asked, keeping my tone easy, almost playful. Her smile came too fast, too wide. Oh, it was a blast. Just drinks and gossip, the usual. Her eyes darted away as she spoke, a telltale sign she couldn't hide. I nodded, letting her think I bought it, but my stomach was already nodding. I knew Elise better than anyone, and this wasn't right. She sank onto the couch, scrolling through her phone, chuckling at something on the screen. The way she held it, angled close, shielding it from view, was new, guarded. I took a slow sip of my whiskey, my face a mask of calm. No need to leap to anything yet. Better to observe, to let the pieces fall into place. The next few days, Elise played her part flawlessly, or tried to. She teased me over breakfast, pecked me goodnight, sent me random texts during the day like nothing had shifted. But I wasn't fooled. That gnawing in my gut didn't fade. Then, on Thursday, she announced she was going out again. Girls' night, she said, fastening a silver hoop earring as she stood in front of the mirror. Mira and Jess want to try that new lounge in Capitol Hill. I leaned against the doorframe, studying her. She looked stunning, too stunning. A sleek navy dress I hadn't seen her wear in ages hugged her frame, her hair falling in soft curls, her perfume a touch heavier than usual. Sounds fun, I said, voice steady. Enjoy yourself. She flashed a quick smile, kissed me on the cheek, and grabbed her bag. Don't wait up, she called as she left. I did anyway. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was Jake, my oldest friend. Hey, man, I answered, settling into the couch. He skipped the small talk. Nate, I'm at that new lounge right now. Elise is here. My grip tightened on the glass in my hand. Yeah, she said she was out with the girls. Jake paused, the background noise of the bar filtering through. She is, but there are guys here too. What do you mean? My voice stayed level, but my pulse kicked up. I've been watching for a while, he said, lowering his tone. She's cozy with one of them, laughing, touching his shoulder, hugging him. It's flirty, man. Too flirty. The world seemed to freeze. I'm on my way, I said, already grabbing my jacket. I hung up, my mind racing as I sped across town, hands clamped on the steering wheel, jaw locked tight. Elise, my wife, flirting, touching another man. The image burned, fueling my speed. Minutes from the lounge, Jay called again. They're leaving, he said, urgency in his voice. She and the group just piled into an Uber. The guy she was with went too. Not sure where they're headed. I cursed under my breath. Thanks, I'll be there soon. When I pulled up, the place was buzzing, neon lights spilling onto the wet pavement. Jake stood by the entrance, draining a beer. I strode over. Tell me. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It wasn't blatant, but it wasn't innocent either. She was all over his jokes, leaning in close, hand on his arm. It's not how a married woman acts, Nate. I nodded, processing it. You okay? He asked, eyeing me. Yeah, I said, my voice flat, hollow. I'm fine, but I wasn't. I drove home, parked myself in the living room, and waited. Elise didn't return for hours. 1 a.m. ticked by, then 2. At 2:30, I heard the door. She stepped in, reeking of gin, her face flushed. I stood. Where were you? She kicked off her boots, casual as ever. I told you, that new lounge in Capitol Hill. I tilted my head. Funny thing, Jake was there tonight. Said he didn't see you. For a split second, her mask slipped, just a flicker of panic, before she smoothed it over. Oh, we bounced to another spot after. Maybe he got there late. Her hand brushed her temple, a nervous tick. She was lying, and I could see it in every line of her face. But I didn't push. Maybe, I said, letting it hang. She smiled faintly and headed upstairs. As her footsteps faded, my unease hardened into certainty. Something was wrong, and I'd damn well find out what. The next morning, Elise was in the kitchen, humming a tune as she poured batter onto the griddle. The sizzle of pancakes filled the air, and sunlight streamed through the window, casting her in a golden glow. She moved with a breezy ease, flipping the spatula like she didn't have a care in the world, like she hadn't stumbled in at 2:30 a.m. with a flimsy excuse I knew was bullshit. To anyone else, she'd look radiant, unburdened. But I saw through it. I'd always seen through her, even when I didn't want to. Her phone sat on the counter, silent until it buzzed once, then twice. She didn't glance at it. That alone set off alarms. Elise was glued to that thing. Texts from friends, work updates, even dumb memes she'd laugh at over coffee. Ignoring it wasn't her style. She kept her back to me, fussing with the stove, but I caught the slight stiffness in her shoulders, the way she avoided the phone's direction. My gut twisted. I leaned against the counter, casual as hell. Who's texting you? She barely looked up, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Oh, just someone from the office. Probably about that project I mentioned. Her voice was smooth, practiced. Too smooth. I nodded toward the phone as it lit up again. Says Colin. Who's Colin? Her hand froze on the spatula for half a heartbeat. Then she shrugged. New guy in sales. We've been collaborating on something for a client. She flipped a pancake, her movements deliberate. I raised an eyebrow, keeping my tone light. Sales, huh? Thought you were in HR. She didn't miss a beat. Yeah, it's a cross-department thing. Big pitch coming up. Bullshit. Elise handled payroll and benefits, not client pitches. I let it slide, sipping my coffee, but my mind was racing. Colin, a name I'd never heard until now. Could be nothing. A coworker, a fluke. But that same instinct from last night, the one that screamed when she walked in smelling like someone else, told me it wasn't. She plated the pancakes, sliding them over with a smile. Eat up before they get cold. Then she kissed my cheek and darted upstairs, muttering something about a shower. The second I heard the water kick on, I moved. Her phone was still there, screen dark. We'd never hidden anything. Passcode shared years ago, an unspoken trust. I punched in hers, and the screen unlocked. What I found hit me like a freight train. Last night was unreal. Still thinking about you. My breath caught. I scrolled. Need to see you again soon. Missed that smile. Then a photo. Elise in a dimly lit booth, glass of wine in hand, leaning into a guy. Dark hair, sharp jaw, smirking at the camera. She was beaming, alive in a way I hadn't seen in months. My chest burned as I dug deeper. Text stretched back weeks, then months. Room 214, 8 p.m. You're my favorite secret. Pet names. Plans. A whole damn life I didn't know about. This wasn't a drunken slip. It was deliberate, intimate, built over time. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was in love with someone else. The shower shut off. I forced my hands to steady, placing the phone back exactly as it was, screen down. Footsteps creaked overhead as she got dressed, oblivious to the bomb she'd left ticking. She came down minutes later, hair damp, smiling like the perfect spouse. Want more coffee? She asked, reaching for the pot. I nodded, gripping the table's edge to anchor myself. Sure. My voice was calm, but inside, I was unraveling. She'd shredded 9 years of us, and I was the idiot who'd missed it. I didn't confront her then. Not yet. Rage simmered, but I swallowed it. I needed more than texts, something concrete she couldn't dodge. That afternoon, I made a call. I need a PI. I told the guy on the line, voice low. Discreet. Professional. Can you do it? He didn't flinch. What's the job? Follow my wife. Get proof, photos, video, whatever it takes. She's hiding something, and I need to know. He paused and give me a week. I hung up, staring out the window at the gray Seattle sky. This wasn't about saving us anymore. It was about ending it right. Elise didn't make me wait long. By Tuesday, the investigator texted, "Got something. Meet me." I drove to a coffee shop in Ballard, hands steady on the wheel. He slid into the booth across from me, dropping a folder on the table. "She's not subtle," he said, voice flat. I opened it. Photos spilled out. Elise and this Colin guy, kissing outside a bar, his arm around her waist, walking hand in hand into a boutique hotel, her laughing as he whispered something in her ear. Timestamps showed late nights. Weekends she claimed were work trips. A receipt from the hotel bar, 2 drinks, her card. Cold fury replaced the ache in my chest. "This enough?" he asked. "More than," I replied, voice like steel. That night, Elise went out again. "Meeting Mira for drinks," she said, grabbing her coat, planting a quick kiss on my lips. I smiled back, letting her think I was still in the dark. The door clicked shut, and I sprang into action. I called the locksmith. "Can you come now? I need every lock changed." He arrived in under an hour, tools clanking as he worked. By 10 p.m., the job was done. Elise's key wouldn't turn shit. Then I went upstairs, yanking her stuff from drawers and closets, dresses, jewelry, even her fancy lotions. I packed it all into bags, methodical, unfeeling. She didn't belong here anymore. At 3 a.m., I heard her at the door, keys jangling, then a thud as she realized they didn't work. Knocking followed. Then her voice, sharp with irritation. "Nate? What the hell?" I took my time strolling over, opening the door slow. Her face was a mix of confusion and defiance. "The lock's not working," she snapped. "Yeah," I said, arms crossed. "I changed them." Her eyes widened. "What?" I pulled out the folder, flipping it open to the photo of her kissing Colin. "We're done, Elise." Her face went white, mouth parting as she stared at the evidence. "Nate, I cut in, voice ice cold. "I know everything. Months of lies, screwing around, coming home like it was nothing." Tears welled up, crocodile tears, too late. "Please, let's talk." "No." I stepped aside, revealing the packed bags. "Take your shit and go." She gasped, hands trembling. "You can't, divorce is filed," I said, final. "Get out." She broke then, sobbing, but I was past caring. This was just the start. Elise stood there, frozen in the doorway, her eyes darting between me and the neatly stacked bags. Her sobs came in jagged bursts, her hands clutching at the air like she could grab onto something. Anything to stop this from happening. "Nate, please," she choked out, tears streaking her mascara. "We can fix this. I messed up, I know, but I love you." Her voice cracked, desperate, but it didn't hit me the way it once might have. That plea, those words, they were hollow, rehearsed. I'd seen the truth in those photos, felt it in the months of lies piling up. Love? She didn't know the meaning anymore. I shook my head, stepping forward to block her from crossing the threshold. "You don't get to say that. Not after this." I shoved the folder into her hands, the photos spilling out. Her and Colin, tangled in each other's orbits, laughing, kissing, living a life she'd hidden from me. "Take a good look, Elise. This is what you chose." Her breath hitched as she stared at the images, her fingers trembling. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered, but the words crumbled under their own weight. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Don't insult me. I'm not that stupid." She tried to push past me, reaching for the doorframe. "Let me in, Nate. We need to talk." "No." I snapped, my voice cutting through her like a blade. "You don't live here anymore. You lost that right when you started fucking around." Her eyes widened, shocked by the bluntness, but I didn't care. I was done softening things for her. I grabbed the first bag and hauled it outside, dropping it onto the porch with a thud. She stumbled after me, still pleading. "Nate, please, I'll end it with him." "I swear." Too late. I turned back for the next bag, my movements mechanical, deliberate. One by one, I carried her life out of mine, her clothes, her shoes, that damn lavender candle she loved. She stood there, helpless, watching as I erased her from the apartment. When the last bag hit the porch, I faced her. "Goodbye, Elise." Her mouth opened, but no words came. Her face was pale, eyes red and swollen, but I felt nothing. I shut the door, the click of a new lock echoing in the silence. She pounded on it for a minute, her voice muffled. "Nate, please." Then it stopped. I heard her drag the bags away, and then she was gone. The next day, I met my lawyer at his office downtown. The folder from the PI sat between us, a stack of damning proof. "She's got nothing to stand on," he said, flipping through the photos, the hotel receipts, the text I'd screenshot before putting her phone back. "Washington's a no-fault state, but this adultery, documented like this, gives us leverage. The apartment's in your name, bought before the marriage. She won't touch it. Your finances are clean too. We'll make this quick." I nodded, my voice steady. I want her out of my life. No alimony, no negotiations. "She gets nothing." He jotted notes. "Filed yesterday. She'll be served soon. This'll be over fast." It was. The divorce moved like a machine, cold and efficient. Elise fought, of course. She always did when cornered. She showed up at the first hearing, dressed in black like she was mourning, her eyes puffy, but her chin high. "I made a mistake," she told the judge, voice trembling. "I want to fix my marriage." My lawyer didn't blink. He slid the evidence across the table. Every photo, every text, every lie laid bare. "This isn't a mistake," he said. "It's a pattern. Months of infidelity, premeditated and concealed." Elise's attorney tried to spin it. Stress at work, a lapse in judgment. But it didn't stick. The judge barely looked at her. "Irreconcilable differences," he ruled. "Dissolution granted." She texted me after long paragraphs of apologies, promises, guilt trips. "I still love you, Nate. I'll do anything to make this right." I deleted them without replying. She'd lost the privilege of my attention. By the end, she walked away empty-handed. The apartment mine, the savings untouched. She'd gambled 9 years and lost it all. Word got around fast. Jake told me she'd moved in with Colin within a week, crashing at his place in Tacoma. I didn't care. She wasn't my problem anymore. But it didn't last. For months later, I ran into Mira at a bar. She looked awkward, sipping her beer before spilling it. "Colin dumped her," she said, avoiding my eyes. No warning, just packed up and left. "She's a mess." I shrugged, taking a pull from my whiskey. "Not my circus, not my monkeys." Mira nodded, and that was that. Elise's fairy tale with her side piece had crashed and burned, but I wasn't surprised. A guy who'd chase a married woman wasn't exactly built for loyalty. For me, the apartment felt like a ghost town after she left. Every corner held echoes. Her laugh in the kitchen, her perfume in the bedroom. It wasn't home anymore. It was a mausoleum, a monument to a life that never really existed. So I sold it. The market was hot, and it went quick. I pocketed the cash, packed my shit, and moved south to Portland. New city, new start. No baggage, no shadows. The first night in my new place, I cracked a beer on the balcony, the skyline stretching out under a clear sky. For the first time in months, I breathed easy. No wondering where she was, who she was with. No weight on my chest. I was free, and it felt fucking good. Portland welcomed me with its gray drizzle and quiet streets, a stark contrast to the chaos I'd left behind in Seattle. The new apartment was smaller, simpler, a one-bedroom with a view of the Willamette River, all clean lines and empty spaces. I didn't bring much, a few boxes, some furniture, the essentials. The rest I'd sold or dumped, shedding the skin of a life that no longer fit. That first week, I walked the city, letting the rain soak through my jacket, feeling the weight lift with every step. Elise was gone, physically, legally, emotionally, and I was finally untethered. The divorce had been a clean cut, but the aftermath lingered like a bruise. Friends reached out, some curious, some sympathetic. Jake drove down one weekend, crashing on my couch with a six-pack and a pizza. "You look good, man," he said, cracking a beer. "Lighter." I smirked, leaning back in my chair. "Feel it too. No more playing detective in my own damn house." He nodded, but his eyes flicked to me, cautious. "Heard she's still with that guy. Colin. Rough patch, though." I shrugged. "Her mess, not mine." He let it drop, and we watched the game in silence, the hum of normalcy settling in. Weeks turned into months, and I built a rhythm. Work kept me busy, remote now, managing accounts for a tech firm. I hiked the trails around Mount Tabor, drank coffee at hole-in-the-wall spots, met people who didn't know my history. The past didn't haunt me here. It was just noise, fading static. But then, one rainy afternoon in March, my phone buzzed with a number I deleted but still recognized. Elise. I stared at it, thumb hovering before letting it go to voicemail. She didn't leave one. An hour later, a text. Can we talk? I miss you. I deleted it. Same as the others she'd sent post-divorce. She didn't get to claw her way back. The next day, I got a call from Mira. She's spiraling, she said, voice tight. Colin's out of the picture. Left her a month ago. She's been calling me nonstop, crying, saying she fucked up with you. I leaned against the counter, staring out at the river. She did. That's on her. Mira sighed. I know. Just thought you should hear it. She's a wreck. Thanks for the heads up, I said, and hung up. Part of me, the part that once loved her, twitched, but it was buried deep, smothered by the cold clarity of what she'd done. She'd built her bed. She could lie in it. I didn't dwell. Life in Portland was mine now, and I wasn't about to let her ghost drag me back. I started running again, something I hadn't done since before the marriage went south. The trails were muddy, the air sharp, and every mile burned away the last traces of her. I met a woman at a bookstore one Saturday. Lena, a graphic designer with a dry laugh and no patience for bullshit. We grabbed coffee, then drinks, then dinner over a few weeks. It wasn't serious, but it was easy. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer. It was enough. Then, in April, Elise showed up. I was unlocking my door, grocery bags in hand, when I saw her leaning against the wall, arms crossed, hair damp from the rain. She looked thinner, tired, her eyes shadowed. Nate, she said, straightening. I froze, keys dangling. What the hell are you doing here? Her lips parted, then closed, like she hadn't planned past this moment. I needed to see you. I set the bags down, jaw tight. There's nothing to say. Go home. She stepped closer, voice shaky. I ended it with him. He's gone. I was wrong, Nate, about everything. I stared at her, the woman I'd once promised forever to, now a stranger begging on my doorstep. You don't get to do this, I said, low and firm. You don't get to waltz back after screwing me over. Her eyes welled up. I know I hurt you. I hate myself for it, but I still love you. I laughed, short and harsh. Love? You loved sneaking around, lying to my face. That's not love, Elise. She flinched, wrapping her arms around herself. I was stupid. I thought he was, I don't know, but it's over, and I see it now. You're the real thing. I picked up the bags, turned to the door. You saw that too late. She grabbed my arm, desperate. Please, just give me a chance. We had 9 years, you had 9 years. I cut in, pulling free. You threw them away. I'm done cleaning up your wreckage. Her tears fell freely now, but I didn't soften. Go back to Tacoma, Elise, or wherever. Just not here. I stepped inside, shutting the door on her trembling silhouette. She didn't knock, didn't call out. When I checked an hour later, she was gone. That night, I sat on the balcony, whiskey in hand, the city lights blurring in the mist. Her words echoed. I still love you, but they didn't pierce. They were just sound, empty as the promises she'd broken. I'd rebuilt without her, and she couldn't undo that. Lena texted, asking if I was free tomorrow. I typed back, yeah, let's grab dinner. Life moved on, and I moved with it. Elise was a chapter closed, a scar faded. I was whole again, and she couldn't touch that. The months after Elise's doorstep, please slipped by quietly, like the steady drip of Portland's spring rain. She didn't call again, didn't text, didn't show up. I heard through the grapevine, Mira, mostly, that she'd moved out of Tacoma, crashing with a cousin in Spokane to figure things out. Colin was long gone, apparently, leaving her with nothing but regrets and a half-empty apartment. Part of me wondered if she'd ever really loved him, or if he'd just been the shiny escape she'd craved until it rusted. Either way, it didn't matter. Her orbit was no longer mine to track. I leaned into my new life harder after that. Portland became more than a refuge. It became home. The river view from my balcony, the hum of the city, the trails I ran until my lungs burned. It all grounded me. Work picked up, too. The firm offered me a promotion, more responsibility, a fatter paycheck. I took it without hesitation. Nights out with Lena turned into a steady thing. Dinner at food trucks, beers at dive bars, lazy Sundays browsing record stores. She wasn't Elise, didn't try to be. Her edges were sharp, her humor dry, and she didn't dig into my past unless I brought it up. It was simple, real, and I liked it that way. One evening in June, I got a package in the mail. No return address, just my name scrawled in familiar handwriting. Inside was a letter and a small silver ring, the one I'd given Elise when we were broke and young, before the wedding band replaced it. I unfolded the paper, her words spilling out in tight, careful script. Nate, I'm sorry. I know you don't want to hear it, but I need to say it. I broke us, and I'll carry that forever. This ring, it's yours. I don't deserve it. I hope you're happy. You deserve that more than I ever did. No please, no begging this time. Just goodbye in black ink. I stared at it, then tossed it in a drawer with the ring. Closure, maybe, but I didn't need it. I'd closed that door myself months ago. Summer rolled in, warm and green, and I sold the last tie to Seattle, a storage unit I'd forgotten about, stuffed with old furniture and photos from the marriage. I hired a crew to clear it, told them to keep or trash whatever they wanted. One guy texted me a picture of framed shot. Me and Elise on a beach, grinning, sunburned, happy. Want this? He asked. I typed back no, ditch it. That life was ash now, and I wasn't sifting through it. The cash from the sale went into a trip, 2 weeks hiking in the Cascades, just me, a tent, and the wild. Up there, with the wind howling and the stars sharp overhead, the last threads of her unraveled. I came back lighter, sure. Lena noticed. Over beers one night, she tilted her head, studying me. You're different lately. Less guarded. I smirked, swirling my glass. Good different. She grinned. Yeah, like you're not waiting for something to go wrong. She was right. The tension I'd carried, watching, wondering, bracing for betrayal, had dissolved. I wasn't that guy anymore, the one pacing his own living room, decoding lies. I was just Nate, and that was enough. By fall, word trickled back that Elise had started over in Spokane. New job, new place, new people. Mira said she'd stop talking about me, stop crying over what she'd lost. She's trying to move on, she told me over coffee when she visited. Finally, I nodded, unbothered. Good for her. And I meant it, not out of kindness, but indifference. Her story wasn't mine to follow anymore. Mira hesitated, then added, she asked if you were happy. I leaned back, sipping my drink. What did you say? Told her you were thriving. She didn't say much after that. I shrugged, let her picture it however she wanted. The truth was mine to live, not hers to claim. The year ended with a quiet New Year's Eve. Lena and I skipped the parties, opting for takeout and a bottle of whiskey on my balcony. The city sparkled below, fireworks popping in the distance. She leaned against the railing, her breath fogging in the cold. Resolutions? She asked, smirking. I laughed. Nah, just keep doing this, living. She clinked her glass against mine. Works for me. We drank, the night stretching out, and I felt it. Freedom, pure and unburdened. No ghosts, no shadows, just the present, sharp and clear. Looking back, the unraveling with Elise wasn't a tragedy. It was a liberation. She'd torched 9 years, sure, but she'd handed me something better, a chance to rebuild on my terms. The apartment in Seattle, the nights waiting up the gut-twisting doubt. They were gone, replaced by this, a life I owned, not one I share with a liar. I didn't hate her anymore, didn't pity her either. She was just a name, a faded mark on a map I'd redrawn. Portland was mine now, and so was I. The weight was gone, the air was clean, and damn, it felt good to be free.